How's it going, everyone? It's Sam. Is it time to buy Nvidia stock? I was going to include this in my daily crypto video, but I figured I should break it off into a standalone video. If you like this kind of thing, let me know in the comment section. If you want me to do more stock analysis, let me know. And I think this will give you a good idea whether it is too late. I'm seeing a lot of people saying, no, it's not too late. Last quarter, people thought it was too late, and they had another killer quarter. They're talking about revising, they revised up their earnings for the next quarter as well, and it absolutely blew out what they had previously set for this quarter. So if you look at next quarter, they might even blow it out even more. So I'm going to talk to you about whether it's too late or not. Some people think it's crazy how fast this has gone up and that there's no way you should even touch it. If you don't mind, hit subscribe, turn that bell notification underneath the video. We have a lot to cover, and as you can see, Nvidia is super interesting because it's up so much year to date, 235%, probably because it's had one of the best years that we've seen for a company in a very long time. They are up about 1.55% here today, $478. It was up to $515 last night. It was up like 10% after market hours. Part of the reason I think it's falling down a bit throughout the day is the whole market's falling down. We have treasury yields going up. We have news that T-Mobile's going to lay off 5,000 employees. I think a lot of people are worried about Jerome Powell seeing the great earnings from Nvidia yesterday and thinking maybe we need to be a little bit more hawkish tomorrow at Jackson Hole. So there are a lot of different reasons why the market's falling down a little bit right now, but that doesn't stop everyone from being amazed at Nvidia's earnings. Even if you think that the price of Nvidia is too high, you have to realize that Nvidia has had a great year. When you look at last quarter, we had 7.19 billion, and they were talking about, in terms of revenue, Nvidia was talking about $11 billion quarter, $11 billion in terms of revenue. A lot of people got excited about that. The price shot up like 25% after hours. Again, this is about 3 months ago. But they came out and blew out expectations. They blew out their own estimates. So a lot of people were worried that they maybe overshot. AI is not as exciting as it was 3 months ago. Maybe they revised their revenue too high at $11 billion. Maybe it'll come in at like 10.5 or something. No, they came in at 13.5 billion. They basically beat their own expectations by 20%. So they are now revising up to 16 or 16.5 billion for the next quarter, which is insane. I mean, we're talking about in 2 quarters, in 6 months, over doubling their revenue. We're talking about 2.5 times their revenue. And they also said that their revenue was only going to be 11 billion this last quarter, and it came in at 13.5. So let's say they say that they're going to hit 16, and they have the same beat of 2.5 billion. We're talking about, instead of 16 billion, 18.5 billion in revenue, which is nuts. Now, something that I love to see in companies is the amount of revenue coming in, more going to the bottom line when they increase their revenue. A better way of saying that is just to see their margin go up when they have a lot of revenue. And that's exactly what happened. They grew their revenue by high 80%, like 85 to 90% this last quarter. And their EBITDA went up 2.55x. So that is great to see. It means that they're becoming more efficient as time goes on. Their free cash flow also went up, not quite 2.55x, but still over 2x, which is great to see when the revenue is going up 88%. Now, I think basically when you look at the company, the main question, the only question you should have, whether you're wondering if you should buy or not, is this going to continue? And I'm just going to say, before I even go further in the video, this is basically the crux of the video. If you think that they're going to continue with this kind of success and they're going to be able to grow at a reasonable rate after this, then I think it makes sense to buy. If you think that this is overhyped, that they're going to fall back down, or that their revenues are going to decrease after maybe some AI hype or something like that, then I would not buy. The reason for that is their adjusted free cash flow per share, adjusted after stock-based compensation, was $2.11 this last quarter. So they did have a significant increase, almost 3x the previous free cash flow. Now, if you take this annualize it, say $8.44, that means that their free cash flow per share, adjusted after stock-based compensation, is around, the yield is around 1.7%, 1.8%, which when you look at free cash flow yield of other companies like Tesla, 0.84%. A lot of people think Tesla's really expensive. 0.84%. Part of that is because they've had some really low free cash flow the last couple quarters. But free cash flow of under 1%, you look at Palantir, another huge retail stock, 1.26%. And when you adjust for stock-based compensation, it's negative 0.42%. Even if you look at something like Microsoft, you're talking about adjusted free cash flow yield after stock-based compensation of 2.09%. And again, that's just taking out some of the pay that executives make from the company. So 2.09%, Google 3.03%. Now, when you look at Nvidia, if you assume that their next quarter is really going to increase significantly, I mean, like we're talking about an increase of maybe 20% in terms of revenue. That means if you add 20% onto their free cash flow per share, that's looking at more like $2.50, which means $10 in free cash flow per share after stock-based compensation is adjusted out, which means that they would be around a 2% stock-based adjusted free cash flow yield. So you're talking about the same price as Microsoft, which is really interesting. I mean, when you look at how quickly they're growing, if they can sustain this amount of growth, even if they just go up to 16 billion for the next quarter and then just stay there for a year, you're talking about not like a super cheap stock, but not super expensive either. Now, the question is whether they're able to hold this amount of success, whether they're able to continue with this kind of growth and just be able to hold it. I'm not even talking about growing it necessarily first year. Obviously, after that, they're going to have to grow because even when you look at Microsoft, I mean, they're beautifully growing every single year. And it is something to behold. That's why they command a higher stock-based free cash flow yield, or a lower percentage, but a higher forward PE ratio of 27. That's why they're trading a little bit more expensive. So you're going to have it grow from here on out. But even if they just got the same that they're going to get next quarter for the next year, I think a lot of people would be happy. But are they pulling forward demand? That's a big question. I mean, we saw that with some companies, right? We saw that with Google back a couple years ago. They had this explosive growth year in 2021, and then they slowed down. EBITDA slowed down. Free cash flow yield, free cash flow actually fell in 2022 versus 2021. So is that what is happening? I'm not sure. And some people think that we've never seen this kind of growth before, but we have. For example, this is something that I found on Twitter. Nvidia investors never seen anything like this. The Stock Geek has. Cisco tripled revenue 1997 to 2000 as the internet boom drove rapid network spend. The stock mooned 10x. Then revenue flatlined 2000 to 2003 as the boom cooled. Cisco stock lost 70% in 2001. And when you look at the company, if you had bought in 2002, yeah, you're up 5x, which is pretty good over 20 years, obviously. But the company's still down from the peak. It's down like, 30% from 2000. So if you had bought at the wrong time, you could be screwed for the next 25 years trying to get back to your cost basis. So I personally am not buying Nvidia right now because I don't know if they're going to be able to keep this level of demand. Even if they do, right? This is a great company, but it's one of those times where they have such a high marks to hit. They have such high expectations that they're going to have to perform really well just to keep up with the price that they're at now. Now, they've been able to do that, but I'm not sure that there's a ton of upside in this compared to other stocks that are still growing but don't have huge expectations, right? Like there are other companies I think are just a lot easier to understand, a lot easier to gauge demand, that just grow consistently. But if this is a stock that you really want to buy and you think that this is going to stay, the demand is going to stay here and is going to continue growing, even if you think it's just going to stay at level for the next year and then grow 10 to 20% after that, then maybe it makes sense to buy. Let me know your thoughts on this underneath the video though. Do you think I'm crazy? A lot of people are revising up their price targets by 20, 30, 40% after the great earnings. So I just want everyone to keep a level head out there. Of course, if you think they're going to keep on growing, it makes sense to buy, but I personally would not bet that much because it is ballooning, right? There are probably better options out there in the stock market. Let me know your thoughts though. Thank you so much for watching. I appreciate it. And